All right, so here we are in the palatial barrel rooms of the Lone Madrone Winery. I'm here with Christian Tietje, good friend and fellow winemaker locally here in Paso. Chris founded, created, built the Four Vines Winery, and he sold it for copious amounts of money and is apparently living on a yacht off the coast of Sardinia at this point in time. But he's here with us for a chat with me tonight. Chris.
And I came back to this lovely weather all for you.
How is Sardinia?
Food's better than here, I have to honestly tell you, but it's still $50 a pop, you know, so no matter what, you're always going to have to choke on lunch.
But they don't have Burger King, do they?
No, they don't, but, you know, the burgers are much better there. They tend to, like, have fresh mozzarella and various other things on them, though, but it's all about the sausage.
Oh, the sausage, Sardinian sausage.
The saucisson.
So, Four Vines, just give the folks out there a why did you start a winery?
Oh, the madness ensued. Yeah, you know, I think we share a very similar past, very peppered past nonetheless, but similar.
Let's not talk about that, shall we? Let's talk about the winery.
in that we both started off cooking, you know, and came to, I think, wine via food, and just loved it. And knowing you as a slightly extreme person and maybe a slightly extreme person, extreme personalities tend to take things to the extreme. So not only did I fall in love with wine, but I had to go make wine.
Right.
And the madness came, and you get into it.
Just couldn't leave it alone.
You just start chasing the demon, and you find these gorgeous vineyards. You're like, I have to make wine from that one. I have to make wine from that one. And then you're at a point where I have to sell this wine now in order to basically pay the bill.
But does it ever stop?
No, not really. It's kind of like a crackhead mentality.
First wine of Four Vines?
Zinfandel, baby.
Was it?
What Paso was all about at the time. No?
Naked Chardonnay stuff.
No, I was actually working and playing around with Frank Norelli over at the old Pasenti property, which is now the pristine and marvelous Turley property. And actually,
Frank's at Zin Alley. Let's throw that one out there.
That's a great story because, you know, I remember talking to Aldo one day and going, you know, this crazy old man, it was really old, and like struggled with the basic day. He was getting to be that age. And one day I was just like, you know, Aldo, every day is an invitation. Why do you keep doing this? Why don't you just sell this place and go to Hawaii? And he just looked at me. He was like, who would buy it? I was just kind of like,
yeah.
Oh, well, I would.
That was a fact of, I mean, if you'd asked that question 5 years earlier, he would have been right.
Yeah, totally.
No one would have. When I first was up here, no one was interested in Paseni. No one even thought about those grapevines. It's kind of weird. And then we all started realizing, I guess, is looking at them going, huh, those are kind of old and dry farm.
I think it's like some of the oldest Grenache in the county. I mean, there's a little bit up there.
There's a tiny bit up there.
And but
never tasted it.
It's killer. Actually, over at the was it the Martinelli Vineyard over off of Ridge Road?
Bumblebee Lane.
You got it. Did you ever play with that fruit? No,
Yeah.
Terry played with it.
No, I did Adelaide.
Yeah.
We had it Adelaide when I first got there. It was Bruno Martinelli was in charge of it then. There was no fencing, no nothing. Munch and I would go up there and stomp around and loved it. I mean, Martinelli was actually the juice that got me to finish my fermentations of red wines in barrel, because I arrived in Adelaide in 92 and his 91 Martinelli was stuck. And Munch and I, worthless as we were, tried everything, tried re-fermentations, and you know, at that point we thought it meant opening a bag of yeast and dumping it in the top of the tank. You know, like, off you go then, and a bunch of yeast food.
Off you go.
And we warmed it up and we did everything that we could think of and nothing worked. So in the end we were just like, sod it. Just put it in barrels, put it away, boom, fermented. And then that led to us thinking, well, we're all about Chardonnay on lees and how much richness and more depth and character that brings. Why aren't we just leaving the reds on the lees and finishing in barrel? And so we started pressing it. Like, it started off at 6 bricks was our thing. We'll press it 6 and we'll put it. And we went as far. We did one year. We did the Beckwith Vineyard, which is up by Norman, and actually it's coming up for grabs. And we pressed it at 20 bricks the barrel. It was hilarious. It was great. And that's how I still do everything.
Fermentation?
God knows. I mean, years probably. We didn't really watch. You just kind of listened.
Yeah.
And that's how I still do it. All this stuff behind you is fermenting away on lees in barrel.
Hey man, Lee saved my ass a couple times this year. I got a wine,
Lees
actually
are
a
beautiful,
Grenache
man.
Blanc, a white wine. I actually got to finish this year by kissing it with a little bit of red lees.
Red lees?
Red lees. I had a very
Man's a
happy.
fool.
I had a very happy restart going for a couple sticky lots, and it was U43, so it was this big beefy finishing yeast. And you know, I could have just let it perk and could have let it hang, but the thing is it finished the lot it was, so I racked it off. It was nice and thick. I put it in a floating top and just let it settle out even more until it was just nice and dense. It still kind of stayed active on it. And then I just took about a gallon of it and put it into like 400 gallons of Grenache Blanc, and you know, there might be a slight brackish hue. But it started perking away, and it's finishing fine. And the thing is I had racked it off its original lees, and I had that and a little bit of Chardonnay lees. And when it's done, I'm just going to put the Chardonnay lees on top of it because I think the Chardonnay lees will pull the rest of it out.
Yeah, people underestimate lees. I got a guy that's working with me at the moment, and he just started last year, and we did our first day of work together, and I'm having him save all the lees in buckets, and we're putting it all in a barrel and putting it in other barrels, and he's kind of looking at me, what are you doing? Why don't we just get rid of this now? You kidding me? This is the best thing in the barrel. And he was used to working over at a large facility where it was, get it off the lees, get them out of here, they're bad, they're dangerous, they're going to make it funky. I'm like, hell no, this is the best thing we got. Let's keep it as long as we can.
I think actually the coolest thing that you and I did last year was hang out with Randall Grow. That was cool. I mean, sit there, talk Morved and all that other shit, and the whole thing came down to reductive aging. Same thing. I mean, like, don't be afraid of stinky lees and stuff like that, because that's where the funk's going to come from.
Yeah, which comes from the guy that put in the, not you, Randall, who put in the huge micro-ox thing. I went up there one time and saw his micro-ox system. Did you ever see that?
No, I haven't.
It was crazy.
I heard Laura.
And I'm looking at him going, I'm scared when I go home that I left a valve open. If I had that thing, I'd never sleep. You know, and it's for sale. I think you can buy that thing there because it's just.
We got a little mini one, man. I mean, like they're good sometimes, but I mean, the thing is what are you going to use it for? I mean, for me, I think its best use is kind of softening some of the big monster Cabernet world, and we don't happen to have that problem here. So what are you going to use it for?
At your level, surely there's no point.
Totally. Just another toy.
Exactly. Is there any point to
you
anything?
Wouldn't
You
believe
do
the toys that we have on the yacht, love.
Yeah, not for TV, Christian. So 4 vines Zinfandel. Then you were stupid and decided you were going to make a Zinfandel from every country in the world, and so you spent most of your time driving your car.
Yes, I almost died doing that a couple times, but it was a very interesting proposition because the one thing about Zinfandel, as I'm sure you're used to dealing with, is like a lot of people just don't get it, you know. And everybody would chase all the single vineyards and all these snapshots, but nobody ever got it about the world of Zinfandel or the terroir and how regionally different Zinfandel could be in different places. And being one of the grapes that is supposedly of California and defines California's heritage, it was pretty cool to go and work with Sonoma fruit, work with Amador fruit.
And you're still doing it, presumably, right?
Yeah,
You're still.
Yes, definitely. I'm still making one.
Still, for the moment,
winemaker.
listening to you at 4 vines for the moment.
My job is to keep the funk.
So
therefore, I have to keep making the wine.
I predict they'll stop listening to you by the end of this week.
We shall see.
Probably.
We shall see.
So then on to Cypher. Are you still going to drive around the world?
No, it's a lot more. It's a lot more focused. But you know, as you know, you and I are both lovers of wine. So just like even drinking this, you know, you can totally. This is a wine that's of terroir. It's killer. It's from a place where this thing sings. And I got to tell you, you just come to appreciate like certain things. Like up in Amador, Barbera is absolutely rock star. You've been making Barbera down here in Paso, and they're completely different animals. And I just love.
I'm not going to say anything about that. Barfendel is what I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it has a tomato soup characteristic, you know, down here in Paso.
My Barbera does not have a tomato soup.
You want to go right now? There is a soccer match tomorrow. You realize, I mean football. So.
Maybe heirloom tomato.
No, but my point being is like
I get it, but the single vineyard thing, this is my thing on single vineyard. Just because it's a single vineyard doesn't mean it's any good.
Oh, I'm 100%.
And that's the problem, is you see all this stuff out there, it's like, oh, it's from the Tietje vineyard. And it's like, well, Tietje vineyard's planted on concrete, for goodness sake.
Yes.
It's crap.
Exactly. And it is all about the blend always.
There is no TGV.
I mean, I've been talking, like, back to Four Vines with the terroir aspect of it. I mean, everybody was chasing the single vineyard, but nobody got it about the terroir of each region because, like, hell, talk about Zinfandel, they're all field blends anyway.
Okay, that brings me to a favorite subject of mine.
So I like the blends.
All right, me too. But this is a favorite subject of mine that I've been talking to journalists and stuff about. There's a lot of guys locally now that are saying that the wines that are huge and are doing very, very well, let's face it, and the critics love them. But these huge wines that are garnering great scores and they're fairly high in alcohol, but people are saying that's the terroir of Paso Robles. And for me, it's like, no, it's not the terroir of Paso Robles. The terroir of Paso Robles allows you to get away with that, but there can be more finesse within that, to me. What do you think about that?
Completely. Eggs? I'm with you 100%. And I think it had to do with youth in winemaking. Ooh. I mean, looking at
what's that?
At Zinfandel. Well, it's not talking about the old curmudgeons that seem to be making wine, but it has to do with the fact that they've only been making wine for 3 or 4 years. You know.
Right.
I mean, with Zin, it's the same thing. Zin, everybody in the world, when Zinfandel kind of blew up and started, you know, getting more popular, it was these big, giant, thick, gooey, you know, wines that were jammy and beyond belief. Break it down as a winemaker, you've got something that you got ridiculously ripe on the vine. You know, it's basically, all its acid has fallen out of it, but you've got screaming high concentration, tons of fruit, tons and tons of alcohol. And you're going to end up with a stuck fermentation because nothing can get, no yeast can live in alcohols that high. And you end up with these sweet, gooey, thick, no acid fruit bombs, okay? And I call that amateur winemaking because they lack all finesse. They have no keel of acid that keeps them fresh and vibrant. You end up with these tired old...
But it's, that to me is probably, and I don't know Zin as well as you do, but that's probably a function, as it is with most varieties, but particularly with Zin, it's fear of picking too early because Zin has so much unripe fruit on the same cluster as over it, so people wait.
But that turns out to be the funk. That's the funk. That's what's cool.
Well, yeah,
about
but people wait and think, okay, if I just let it get overripe over there, then it'll cover up the greenness. But, you know, I have this argument with jacks in my fermentations. People are like, oh, you're allowed jacks in your fermentations. Jacks being stem stuff, green bits. My thing is I don't think that I want to pull all that out. And one of my complaints about either of the wines I make with Tablas Creek or the Lone Madrone wines is not green flavors. And I've not had anyone tell me your wines have green flavors.
Yeah, no green
so
flavors.
Why the hell am I going to have 18 people sort?
You actually inspired me. It's because of Neil Collins that I had all this fancy equipment to take all the green out, and I found myself going and taking stems from the stem bin and sticking them back into fermentation.
I went and visited a guy who was doing that. I went to see his system, and he had literally like 16 people sorting before or after.
Yeah.
And then the sorted berries were going back in to a fermenter on top of the stems that he'd sorted out. And I'm standing there going, wow.
Yeah,
I mean, he gets huge scores and he does very well and it's fine, it's great, I get it, but I didn't get that.
No.
So why bother? Just throw it in the bloody bin, jump up and down on it.
I've ended up with Mourvèdre especially, you know, working a lot with, you know, at least 50% whole cluster fermentations. And the thing is that, I mean, when you're playing with Cabernet, and Cabernet, the great fear is always green bell pepper and that vegetal characteristic. Well, when you're playing with the Rhone wines, you know, provincial herb is like one of the sexier attributes of those wines, you know, in the region. And just like, how do you get the sexy part? You know, it's not going to be just like being absolutely pristine and having the virgins walk every grape, you know, completely unbroken through the process. Always. It's part of the application process.
Can I borrow them?